Bob from Oregon's Constant Gardener. It's a weird mood. We're going to do it anyway. Fewer questions. Here we go. Are you ready, Scott?
I think so.
Okay. Okay. Great info. This is from Jack McAtee. Great info. Did you mention another time using vinegar to lower pH in soil? As times you leave out particulars or don't cover issues well that have to do with the point you're trying to make. Maybe I'm just slow, passive aggressive. That sounds like something we'd say. Maybe I'm just slow. Anyway, yeah. I don't remember anything about vinegar other than for killing shit in the garden. You said to kill the weeds with it.
Well, I think in the groups they discuss vinegar as being like a home remedy for pH down.
That seems weird to me.
I mean, it would work. It's just I wouldn't go there all the time.
So, doesn't vinegar have other properties other than lowering the pH? No?
Oh, well, it's antimicrobial, it's a cleaning agent, so, I mean, my fear there is you put too much of that in, you could really be harming your microbial field. I mean, it's one of those where I overshot my pH and it's too high, I don't want to throw all my nutrients away. I'm fresh out of carbonated water, so what do? You can drop it with a little vinegar.
Or just feed tomorrow and throw that away.
Or just add more Gaia and make it lower, or, I mean... yeah, no, I mean... It's suspect. I've seen that go around. I wouldn't personally do it myself. I'd add more Gaia and Herkin and just make it a really strong feed versus the vinegar. Yeah. Because my cleaning agent at home is vinegar. I mean, we use distilled white vinegar and water, and that's how we clean everything.
Yeah, no, I'm suspect. But, you know, to each his own, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's in a pinch, and you really don't want to waste $25 of lost nutrients, sure, go ahead. But I wouldn't make it like, hey, I'll just use this instead of your Hades or a cheaper pH down version.
Heck no.
Stick with at least phosphoric acid has a phosphorus level to it that can offer that food to your plant, where vinegar is just acid.
Now,
so it's just dropping.
Yeah. So, all right. I'm just going to drop it.
Probably best.
All right. Good afternoon from West Michigan. What's in West Michigan?
It's the cool side of the state. Not just kidding. It's the side that doesn't have Detroit.
I got you. Now you're from Grand Rapids, right? Is that correct?
That's right. That would be considered the west side.
I got you. And then there's northern Michigan. That's
well, there's two norths. So you got up north and you got UP. So you're either a Youper or you come from up north.
I got you. So what's up north? Not up top in Canada, but the north.
Upper Peninsula.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
the UP. So when they say up north, that's UP north. UP.
So
Upper Peninsula.
You've got UP. Michigan proper, and there's like a little Canada part up here. What's that part?
Upper Peninsula. The mitten is Michigan.
Okay.
The Upper Peninsula is connected by the Mackinac Bridge.
Okay. Okay.
I guess it's like this to you people.
Is there an island? Mackinac.
Mackinac Island?
Mackinac.
Yeah, it's a really cool place. You should look it up. There's a great documentary on it, but there's no gasoline, no motors on it, so everything's horse-drawn. The garbage carts are drawn by horses. Everything's horse-drawn carriage, so they don't allow vehicles on the island. It's cool. It's a beautiful spot. Fort Mackinac is an incredible place, and then you got the Mackinac Resort that's just a stunning old piece of architecture.
All right.
Mackinac.
Mackinac. So what's Mackinac?
Mackinac. Well, you know, it's like Willamette. And yeah. Well, so that's why when you come from Michigan, you come out to the Willamette or the Willamette. You know?
So that
Willamette, it's Willamette.
So we see
from Michigan.
Mackinac, but it's Mackinac is how they say it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon from West Michigan. This is Tyler Stroven. He says, episode 195. Jeez, it's getting serious. This is a serious episode. We need to dig in. Scott talks about a few different strains that will stay green longer and flower. I'm looking but can't find information regarding this. Keep on doing what you do. Y'all rock.
I think he's predominantly talking about the Gorilla Glues and the cookie strains. You know, those are the ones that we see traditionally holding on to nitrogen or finding nitrogen in the end of flowering cycle. So I believe that's what he's talking about.
Okay. Would you focus on strains or on the person selling it to you?
Meaning?
Well, like certain breeders is the word that comes to my mind. I mean, the person that, you know, you can crawl up a cow's ass or you can trust your butcher kind of situation.
Well, there are legit breeders for sure.
Yeah,
legit seed dealing people. I mean, if you're going directly to the dealer, I mean, I know, or the breeder, they know their genetics and they've been doing it long enough. Or if you're getting cookies from this breeder, then you're most likely getting cookies from that breeder.
So it's a little bit of both.
If your friend hands you a bag and says, "Hey, this is that," they named it themselves. I mean, I was just at an event in Southern Oregon where this person from a small town down there told me how they name all their strains. And I'm like, well, that's not how they work, but hey, good on you. That's why we call people pollen chuckers, is because you can't just have two things, make a new seed and call it, you know,
name it.
Exodus 9. It just is not the thing. So, but I think if you're going through reputable, I mean, there are reputable breeders, they're well-known, they're, you know, their whole livelihood is on the line, so they have to be as legitimate as possible. Yeah. So if you go to one of them and they're highly spoken of, then you're getting cookies, and you know you're getting cookies when you're growing them because cookies grow the way they grow. Yeah. Gorilla Glue grows the way Gorilla grows. So I mean, you're not going to grow these humongous, long, skinny, sativa-looking things with these two types of genetics. So if you start seeing that, then you probably got the wrong genetic. So would you maybe just go to your breeder and tell him your situation and let him help you out with this kind of over trying to figure it out on your own? Does that make sense? A lot of them will have pretty amazing websites and stuff that you can go on. And I mean, I'm working with one farm that's all he does. He goes to Mosca Seeds site, or he goes over to Thug Pug Genetics, and he just basically looks for all of the attributes that he needs for his garden, and then he purchases accordingly. But, you know, we're not at that luxury right now in the industry. But now a lot of people are like, I need to grow what the consumer's going to buy, and that can change every other month. I mean, one month it's, you know, high-end Scooby snacks or, you know, dog walker or, you know, wedding cake, and then all of a sudden everybody wants Blue Dream again. So who knows? Hope for the best. Well, grow what you like, in my opinion, because if no one's going to buy it, at least you can smoke the shit you like.
Awesome. Okay, we're rolling. My 1960 panel. I'm using Nectar of the Gods in Roots Organics original potting soil. Now the bottle says pH down to 6.2 or 6.8, but Roots Organics original potting soil says pH down to 5.5 to 6.5, so not sure where to pH my nuts. For feed, he's probably meant newts. Probably meant newts. That's funny that autocorrect corrected it. It's funny they corrected it. If not, you know, pH in your nuts is pretty important. It depends on, you know, how the... well, it can dry out and you've got a problem. For feeding, any advice on this, I've been running 6.5 to 6.8 pH and I'm seeing problems. This is a confusing message to me. I'm happy you put it in here. So let's break it down. So you're saying 6.2 to 6.8 for your nutrients, not for your soil, although the soil is made for your nutrients. But if you go to a different soil... well, it doesn't matter. It's what mode of action are you trying to execute here? If you're trying to feed with the bottles, you want to go with the bottle feed recommendations because that's what you're feeding them. If you're just going to use their soil as a super soil, then you'd want to follow their 5.5. If you're at 5.5 with our stuff, you're just watering is all. So we can edit this part out if you like, but so one would look at the advertising and think that Roots Organics and Nectar for the Gods are basically the same thing. But one would be incorrect in my estimation. I mean, they're apples and oranges. Yeah. The difference. So, you know, the 5.5, it's called marketing. So if you go, this soil's best between 4 and 10, well, of course, because that's everything in the world. So, yeah, that's what we're going to do. 5.5 and you're trying to feed calcium, it's never going to happen. So throw out that recommendation. The only reason why you'd ever water Roots Organics at 5.5 is if you're running a 3-part salt-based nutrient. Sure. 5.5 to 6.0 is the way to go.
Now, if you're at 6.5 to 6.8 with every feeding, then the chances are you're feeding above the range. What's the slurry in the soil? So if you're seeing problems, what I need to know is where the problems are coming from. What's the slurry saying? Is it a parts per million issue? Is it an actual pH issue? We would need more info on this to actually see what the problem is and how to fix it. But if you're only feeding 6.5 to 6.8, you're going to see problems because you're not offering a whole lot of nitrogen and phosphorus, and the calcium on the higher end of that is all that's really being allowed.
So let me ask you that then. You're using Nectar. We're not going to worry about the soil. You go 6.5, 6.8 as opposed to 6.2 to 6.8. You're cutting yourself short? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, I think so. It's cutting out that first 6 trays of the buffet line. If I get in the buffet line and the 6.1, 6.4 is the rice and noodles, but I'm only eating 6.5 to 6.8, then I'm only eating chicken.
Okay, so then let me ask you this, and it's probably getting into some basics or not, but if I just naturally am hitting 6.8 with what I'm doing, I should probably be trying to get down from time to time to the 6.2 to have a wide range there. Because I think people think 6.2 to 6.8, anywhere in there is fine. You're not saying anywhere in there is fine. You're saying
that's your range that is acceptable, but they're not all optimal.
So optimally, you would be...
Well, that's it. Is everybody wants this optimal level, and it's like, man, between your water, your alkalinity, your RO system, your environment, your lighting, there's no optimal exact. It has to be a variable in some aspect. So, you know, I'm a big fan of 6.3 today, 6.5 tomorrow, 6.4 tomorrow, 6.7, 6.8, 6.1, 6.2. Bounce around because all these different elements are being released at all these different pH points. So by giving them more of a shotgun approach of pH, then you get more of a shotgun approach of intake. 6.5, 6.8 all the time, you're probably not getting he's probably yellowing and slightly yellowing. If you're, well, it also depends if you're in veg, you're going to see way more issues at that pH, but if you're in flowering, you're going to see much less issues because that plant is consuming so much calcium, and in the form of calcium phosphorus, it likes that higher pH to be able to bring all that stuff in.
So in practice with your grow, how do you do that? I mean, do you keep records, or what do you...
6.1 to 6.3 in veg and bouncing, and then as I get ready to transition, do my slurry test, figure out where my soil is, then I start ramping it up from that 6.3 to 6.8 realm.
Off in left field, I'm getting older and I've had the same pairs of pants for a long time, and I always fold the Levi's with the tab up. And I've noticed that all my pants have one leg slightly shorter than the other. So I'm always doing it the same. Is this kind of the... No, it's true.
No, I need you to go to your doctor and actually have him measure your stupid legs.
No, it's the pants.
One of your legs is smaller, and I bet you it's your right one since the tag is on your left.
No, I don't notice it on the legs. I notice it on the pants when I'm holding and pick them up.
How about you walk? You go like this.
It's not that.
You bottom out like you got a flat tire.
You're just having a go at me. I'm talking about the pants themselves. The one leg sits a little shorter when I'm holding them up. My point being, Mr. trying to mess with my psyche.
I think your left thigh is fatter, so it stretches the fat.
It's the pants before my legs are in them.
Why not? But they have to stretch all the day, and the whole day you're wearing them. Then when you wash them, they'll shrink up because they were stretched this way. So when they shrink up, and your long leg that's skinny because it's anorexic or broken, that one doesn't stretch out the fabric, so it maintains its elasticity and its length. It's your fat right leg. That's the problem.
I would say, one, that's a pretty good point, and two, you're not a nice person. Because I'm going to be thinking about that. My point being...
You're going to be in the mirror going...
The consistency, my point being, consistency may not be your friend in this situation.
Well, and now you have Olympus Up that is, you know, albeit that we try really hard to be 100% consistent. It's not a consistent product in the sense that the limestone in there, as it's being bottled, is, you know, you get a little bit of a wave on that as well. So like I said,
go with it.
Huh?
Go with it. When it's not quite working right.
avoid the constant 6-8 feedings because that's going to cause a long-term issue. We need to know what the slurry is of that soil because I think the slurry is the actual root cause or issue of what we're seeing. And it's not necessarily because they're watering at 6.5, 6.8. It's because of what's happening in the soil.
So he's doing the right thing here to some extent, although you would have some up and down. So discount the soil's recommendations. In fact, would you say discount the recommendations on any bag or bottle, what's on the label, because that's all bullshit? We can edit this out if you like.
No, I 100%. You don't have to edit that out because honestly, like even our labels, Frank wrote the description and usage on all of our labels 18 years ago.
Well, and they're also written for that bottle, not for these bottles in concert.
For sure, yeah. None of them are designed like follow feeding schedule 9 because we can't even say that. That's a claim on a bottle that we can't register. So there's no way you can do that. So you do it as if I bought this one bottle and all I'm going to do with this one bottle is use this one bottle, so I'm going to follow its directions. Sure. It's probably fine to do it that way.
Because you could in theory, but that's not what we're doing here.
No, we're doing a whole program, and it's designed by the growers, and here's how they use it, so this would be their recommendations. These aren't our recommendations. These are the growers' recommendations of what they've done to see success in their grow, not us.
So the label on virtually everything is probably about that particular product, whereas you're not even saying the feeding chart is what you think, it's what you've experienced through putting this stuff out to the world and having them figure this out.
Yeah.
Okay. Good answer. Boobler, 26. I'm getting loud. I'm in Metro Detroit. Should I scrap the RO system and use tap water? Perhaps some general advice is what I put down here, because if you could answer that one, but also answer about water in general and how you decide that.
I mean, it boils down to what your tap water is. If you're,
well, Detroit's a big town from what I hear. There's probably different tap water all over, I would assume.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's a huge city. So yeah, I would have to know your aquifer or the test lab for what the water labs say, or just your NP, whatever the pH and ppms are, just so we can kind of get a sense of where we're starting from. Oftentimes, I mean, just shy of like complete toxic waste or Florida water, you know, just because there's so much fluoride in the water in Florida. But just outside of, you know, super high parts per million of chlorine or chlorides or, you know, mineral salts.
If you're... Sorry.
Go ahead.
If you're drinking it, and you're not
that
dead.
Doesn't mean much, though.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that where do you go from? I mean, you would maybe do some basic tests unless you were suspicious. I mean, if you're living in Flint, I hear it's not great there, and you may not want to do anything with that water, except wash your car, perhaps. So, but if you...
It's a lot of lead. I mean, that's not good for paint.
No. So, I guess what I'm saying is if you feel like your water's, in theory, looking okay, that you would maybe do some basic tests with your slurries and stuff to see if things are out of whack. Otherwise, you're probably fine with this. But if you suspect, maybe do some RO situation and then deal with that whole thing. But it's a thing either way, I guess. So how does someone, in their mind...
You know, the starting point is, wow, my pH is 4.6 out of my tap and the parts per million are 900. Yeah, that's not good water to use.
Yeah.
There's a lot of contaminants that are destroying that. Or if you're at like a 12, who's there?
My door's open here. I gotta go deal with
it. Yeah, if your water is just just checking your pH in your water and making sure they're somewhat in range. And as long as your pH and ppms are in a decent 200 to 400 range or less, or the pH is anywhere from like mid 6s up to 8 something, then we know that you're tending to trend towards alkalinity and higher calcium load in the water. But if you're at like 6.0, 400 parts per million, you're going to have a lot of pH issues going through the whole grow with that.
I guess too, it maybe, you know, it's easy to feel like this is the only grow you're ever going to do, but you're not. You're doing this for the rest of your life probably, and it's a...
Some of them.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. you know, I'm not a giant fan of RO. I don't think it's the answer to everything because you have to rebuild it. You have to make sure your soil's got all the calcium and alkalinity it needs. So I'm a big fan of trying to figure out how to make the tap water work if you're in a region that their tap water is reasonable. You know, have somebody with a good sense of smell and really give it a huff, or reach out to the city and find out what your water system, how much chlorine's in there, what the chlorides are like. You know, if you can gas off the chlorine with air stone and some circulation overnight, I mean, I prefer the tap because you're getting a better structure of water than RO.
Well, and it's way better for everything concerned if you can make that work. So why not try to make that work? And if you can't, last
RO's
ditch.
got a lot of waste, and in the state, I mean, Michigan, they're on water. I mean, there's so many natural springs, and the lakes, I think, attached below the state underneath. It's not the Great Lakes state. I think it just floats on top. Lots of water in Michigan.
So try to make it work, and if you can't, then you go with the RO. But the RO is not like an easy, heck, I'll just do the RO.
It's almost like you have to be ready to address more issues with RO. It is a way to start naked and fresh with a blank slate, but you have to be prepared to start throwing paint at it because that blank slate's going to bite you when it starts dipping down on the pH. And it will dip down on the pH, so just make sure you're always prepared for that.
Okay. Boobler's back again. Hey, Bob, I'd really like to see a video on what looks... I'm going to start over. Hey, Bob, I'd really like to see a video on what to look for when switching from early, mid, and late feeding mixes. I think it will be very helpful as plants all have different flowering durations. So he's talking about the feeding chart where it's got the early, late, mid. How do you know when, and what do you do when, and do you transition? Can you speak on that a little bit?
Well, I mean, a couple general rules of thumb would be, you know, you take your flowering cycle, let's say it's the 10-week.
Okay.
You break that up into, I take 9 weeks, because the 10th week would be your flush week. You take the 9 weeks and you just do 3 weeks early, 3 weeks mid, 3 weeks late, 1 out. Or 4, 2, and 4. Or, you know, the main way I test is slurries. When I see that I'm feeding at 1,400 parts per million of mid-flowering, and I go in 2 days later and it's 200, I'm not giving them enough. I'm going to jack it up to the next feeding schedule because I need to be at 1,600 to 1,700 and try to maintain that 300 to 400 parts per million in the soil. So slurries are really big, just a big tool to help you know that your mid-feeding veg cycle is no longer adequate. They need more to get to that next stage.
So you could look at this as a math problem of taking whatever you've gotten and cutting it into 3 parts, or you can be proactive and be looking at your slurries to see when they're eating it up more and then moving them up. So if you
that's it. And with slurries, you get to see it, and then you're visualizing, okay, well, if I'm looking at this number and I'm looking at the plant and I'm seeing this reaction, then I know, okay, this is common. When it hits 200, I see this light yellowing and intravenous greening. Oh, okay, I need to jack that up. Or, oh, this is at 700. That's why everything's kind of doing this. Freaking out because you correlate the look to the parts per million of what the soil's reading.
So this is not a 1, 2, 3. It's a 1...
Well, like you said, every genetic. I know guys that run 8-week flowering genetics that go 10 weeks all the time. So it's it's plant specific.
So, but you're moving up within the range of what the plant can eat to give it more and more and more and more and more to produce better.
I don't just go, okay, I'm doing 4 weeks of veg, so 1 week early, 2 weeks mid, 1 week late, because I might be skipping out on a whole set of feedings for them, and they may be more aggressive, or it's a really weak eater, and I'm forcing it to eat, and I'm telling it it's got to eat, even though I don't know any idea what the parts per million are doing.
So what happens when you try to feed too heavy? I mean, is there a downside to just pouring it on to some extent?
Well, they stop eating, and then it becomes a lockout, and then it becomes such a high buildup of nutrition in the soil that you can actually burn. And burning's tough, but locking out's not hard at all.
And you're flushing it out to get rid of that, and you're wasting that, and you're also losing time when they could have been eating effectively.
Well, that's it. You've wasted the money of putting all that extra food in that's never going to get consumed. Then you're wasting the time trying to figure out why they're not eating. Then you do a slurry, and then you waste the time because you have to flush the heck out of them just to get those parts per million down. And now you've wasted a whole week of what could have been heavy producing feedings.
So would you err on the side of less as you learn your genetic and you learn
Less
your growing?
Is more, always. Well, you can always add more, but it's impossible to take it away once it's given.
Okay. Good answer. Good answer. You're killing it. Greenbush 1976. My tap water is 8.4 pH. My recent slurry test is low at 5.6-ish. Confused. As I use the tap water for slurry tests, soil that off. Is there any...
Is the soil that off?
Is the soil that off? I understand. Is there any method to correct soil right before flip? I'm afraid with soil so far out, pH feeds are not going to be efficient. Any suggestions other than starting over with new soil?
What do you think, Bob? I think you got this one, Bob.
I'm confused too. I think you got me there.
I'm not confused. I mean, there's an issue with the soil. It's probably like a 5.2, 5.3 in the slurry if he's starting with 8.4 and he's getting a 5.6.
Well, he's never in range on either side of it, so he's got some issues. He's got to chimera that up. No?
He needs, chimera it up or just
lime.
Put a bunch of limestone if you can get that today. Put the limestone in. If you can wait a few days, order some from OCG on Monday. They're going to have it up on their website. That'll get to you, and that'll definitely fix it. If
but I guess the bigger issue is that he's on both sides of he's never in. There's nothing happening there.
Well, I mean, I think we need to have some more questions answered. I mean, how is he feeding currently? Because he just says my tap water is 8.4. Yeah. My recent slurry came out to 5.6 with using his tap water. So that's what he's saying. Is it cut off? Is that like...
Well, what's going on?
Huh?
What's going on here? It seems like I'd be in range. I wouldn't be that huge swing on it, I guess is what he's asking. And I'm asking too.
Well, yeah, I would have to ask a lot more questions of what the soil is, why. I mean, 8.4 should have some calcium carbonate in the soil for sure, unless it's really high in iron. If it's high in iron, that could also be causing this pH dip. So I would need more info here, but right now, knowing that you're at 5.6, about to go into bloom, you're right. You're going to be fighting that pH the entire bloom cycle unless you boost it with some calcium limestone or chimera.
Okay. So,
But if he emailed me with some more specs on that and got me more info, then at least I could kind of drive that a little bit more detailed and get him better information, not so basic.
Well, so if this water was that high though, or low, and if it's iron, why would that make it swing? Because are those the two options? It's calcium or it's iron?
It could be iron oxide, and a lot of the oxides there will be a higher pH because of their makeup.
Okay.
And so iron oxide will give you a higher pH, but then once it deposits, the oxides get used, and all of a sudden the iron's left behind. It become rust and acidic.
So, if that's the case, what would you do there? Still the same. You need to put more calcium in there. You need to put
fix it.
limestone in there.
Phosphorus or iron takes up your phosphorus. So if you're trying to work with Herculean Harvest or Gaia or Circes or Tritons, you got all this iron in there that's tying up the phosphorus out of those products. So there's a whole nother issue you got to fight.
So is this a situation where if you have high iron water, there's not much of a solution other than going to some RO or some of that situation?
Well, iron's easy to filter, so a lot of these guys have just iron filters, like a pre-filter for iron in an RO system. So you don't even need the full RO, you just need a good filter.
So this kind of filters back to the other question of where I use my tap water, but I see a problem with my tap water, and I fix that problem with my tap water, not go into an RO situation.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. What?
Do you ever get calls that don't make the phone ring, but then they leave you a voicemail? You ever get those?
No.
Like, it never rang, but I got a voicemail. It's so weird. Like, just now, I just got a voicemail, but nobody called.
I think there's some kind of not a conspiracy, but it's like, when your phone where you have it on don't disturb, and if they call twice within 30 seconds, it disturbs you kind of thing. I think it's like the opposite of that. Where they have some sort of way of, like, tricking your phone.
Apparently this guy, let's see what he says. I think he is one of those guys.
This will be exciting.
Oh, it's John here. Oh, listen. Ready?
I'm ready.
Hey, John here. I know we spoke in the past regarding that term loan for your business. $250,000 on a 10-year term.
I gotta go. That's $350,000 on a 10-year loan term.
You know, it's funny because he's talking nonsense, but he sounds so genuine that I feel like I should just...
I know we talked about it there, you guys.
Like, you're going to be like, you know, I don't remember that, but he must be telling me the truth.
Man, I smoke good weed. I can't remember this guy to save my life, bro.
They're preying on the weed smokers.
Sign me up. What do I gotta do? You see my social security number, my bank routing information, brother?
That's a great show. This is the worst show ever, I think. We got some good information.
Oh, no, we've done
way worse.
I mean, this isn't good. But
no, this is no. Don't get me wrong.
I was going like this.
La 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 la. Dylan. Yeah, Dylan. Mitev. Can I mix 5 milliliters per gallon in the water that I pour, keep in the clones tray, and leave it there for a day or two before changing it? This is about SLF 100.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So you can leave the...
Yeah, I wouldn't even change it. I would leave it in there. I would just
go.
Add some more water and a little bit more SLF. SLF, I mean, those microbes, they're anaerobic. They want to live in that solution. They will live in... They'll actually populate that water to make more SLF.
So you're saying that you wouldn't... I mean, you would probably add more as you go, but you don't have to add more as you go? That it's just going to... It's going to stay in there. It's not going to die or get messed up. It's just going to keep doing what it does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it colonizes in solution. So the cool thing about SLF is that if you add it to water and let it sit around, I mean, I've seen these experiments down there that they just take it, put it in some water and let it sit there, and they can lab it later, and it'll be the same concentration after like 9-10 months. I mean, it's just colonizing is all it does. It doesn't die off in water.
Good Lord.
It's cool.
Yeah, it is.
And you can drink it, and it grows in your stomach. It's incredible stuff.
That doesn't sound great to me. I don't know. I don't think I will. I will.
I got some right here. This is his fancy label for humans. It comes in glass.
Dun dun dun.
That's about 4 times as much as you need to drink, but
I'm not prepared to do that, but I feel...
It's probiotic.
No, I don't think that's a real thing.
Oh, it's totally a real thing. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
I like all my stuff pre-digested.
I have my mom chew my food.
There you go, Bob. Eat your dinner.
Rodney M. Is the only reason you'd use the Olympus Up in carbonated water when you have high pH issues in your soil. If you are not having a problem with that, is it bad to do that at all? Or would you even a seemingly fine run benefit from, I've lost the trail with the words here, but I'm going to keep just saying them, from the use of this once or more? I recall when he first mentioned it to his fellow, and then this thing happened, but she was with the thing, and I said to her, what? And she said...
Then she got in, and we drove down the road, and then there's 6 of them.
And there was donuts! I recall when he first mentioned it to fellow coworkers, they were...
So he works at a store.
Okay.
We were chatting.
So
and
this
had
is...
been brought up. A couple of his fellow coworkers applied it, saw some pretty impressive things.
Were you listening to the dude's story?
Huh? No,
Were you listening? It's like you wandered in like a child. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I interrupted. So you know what this question means, and you can just say
I think so. So basically, it had been brought up. Somebody, his coworkers tried this without having low pH issues in the soil. And they came back with, holy heck, you should see the release rate of the nutrition when you do this. So I think that's where the question really lies.
It's a way is this a way to feed a Bloom chaos situation?
Well, kind of, and the end all of this question was they were so stoked with the results they saw. Did that mean that they all had pH issues, or does it just work that way?
Does it just work for anyone? And
yeah.
The only reason you wouldn't do it is because you don't want to use 5 gallons of Herc every feeding.
Or 65 gallons of carbonated water. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword there. A lot of guys went like, hey, you only have 2 weeks left. We can Band-Aid you out. We can get you to the end, and then next time we'll do this, blah, blah, blah.
But is it nitrous for your...
With them. They don't want to do 2 weeks of carbonated water. But the ones that do come back with, like, holy bejeezers, that is amazing how they finished out, how they hardened off, how they gained weight. I mean, when you dial that in, and that carbonation, or the carbonated water converts all that carbonate into something usable, they just take off. So it shocks people when they see the plants doing 30 miles an hour and all of a sudden they're doing 80 miles an hour and they can't figure out why.
So would you say that's the case, or are you suspicious?
Well, I would imagine they have all sorts of available nutrition in the soil when they did that unlock and their pH got dialed in and they added alkalinity for the first time to their water source. Then yeah, no, I don't think they may have had a pH issue. I think they got to see what converting calcium carbonate to bicarbonate really is all about. Now, would I do it all the time? I think there's a negative return eventually when you put that much CO2 into the root zone as a constant. If you're trying to Band-Aid out a crop so you don't have to till it in or sell it for, being yellow before it's harvested, then go nuts. You're not going to do any harm to it. You're just not going to, it's not a long game. To me, it's the Band-Aid, not the long game.
But if you're at the bleeding edge and you're going to spend as much as you want and do as much as you want and you're going to push as hard as you can, would you? Or are you still suspicious of that?
Oh, I wouldn't even, because if my water source is good and I'm using that much acid in my Herc, my Gaia, my Circes, my Tritons, and then I got my Olympus up as my pH adjuster, I'm already doing that. Some people don't have the luxury of good water, and some people don't have the luxury of being able to feed heavy with those other products with the Olympus up.
So
I wouldn't say it's the way to go by any means. It's a Band-Aid, and it works.
So the next question hits it again. So mixing with a carbonated liquid will benefit the food intake. So
it benefits the carbonate to become a bicarbonate to make the energy to make the intake happen. So if you are naturally have all that carbonate built into the soil and you're feeding them with 6-1 water or nutrition, it's releasing all of that carbonate into a bicarbonate the same way carbonated water would. The only difference is it's 0.3 pH less than 6.4 with carbonated water.
So you put nitrous oxide on your Honda Civic, but not on your Bugatti Veyron. Does that make sense?
3 trips down the track, and then you're sealed your shop.
Absolutely, but also what I'm saying though is that you don't see a Ferrari F40 with the nitrous on it because it's so dialed that it doesn't really make a huge difference at the top end.
Yeah, the Ferrari's turbo trumps the nitrous in the Honda.
Okay, that makes sense. All right.
Good one, car guy.
Good answer. Car guy. Flicklogy says, so we're changing gears. Are you ready? What is the ideal slurry test result for flowering? You're making fun of me again.
No, it's just not an answerable question.
Well, that's the best questions, is the ones you can't answer. So there is
Depends on your genetic, your environment, your grow, your food, your soil, your lighting, your water source, your air conditioner, your curing process, your drying process.
So within the world of one-hand clapping noises,
you're it.
Oh my God!
It's horrifying.
Well, yeah, but I always thought this. It's this. That is the sound. That is the sound of you.
Okay. Your brain.
So, is there, even if you have a context of like what you want it to be, it really doesn't matter what it is. It's the curve of it, of where it was based on the last one, or is there any answer to this question?
Not without getting a whole lot of hate mail afterwards, because it's, you know, well, let's put it this way. I have one farm that at 6.4 at their finish produces their fine, top grade, incredible jar peels, outstanding flour. Pig farm, you know, they're ending theirs at 6.8, 6.9 in the slurry at the last week of bloom, and they're punching them with food, and their yields are through the roof.
Well, I'm sorry.
Oh, there's just no. It's so random between plant, soil size, soil container. I don't have an answer. I mean, I'd say mid-6s for sure. 6.4, 6.8.
Okay, is there any time when you want your pH to drop below 6 or raise above 7? When you would want it to?
If it gets above 7, I don't worry, because it's not a long game, and it's the calcium's kind of doing this and releasing and dropping and releasing and dropping. So,
but ideally,
the higher pH is it's just a calcium roller coaster ride that the plants don't seem to be so worried about. The lower is the one that would scare me. So anything under 6 and anything below 6.0, we're going to see a lot of calcium deficiencies. We'll see a lot of phosphorus deficiencies in our plants.
Right.
You know, really anything under 6.1, we start to kind of go, hey, why are your plants so yellow? And so, I mean, that mid-6 range is kind of like the standard for most every plant, or in our world, most of our plants.
Yeah.
So as long as I'm in that 6, I don't react when I see 6.4 to 6.8 or 6.9 in my soil.
So that is the optimum with that.
If I see 7+, then I start to go, all right, I'm going to do a few feedings at 6.1, kind of monitor this pH, make sure it's not going to keep climbing, and then I'm going to try to figure out why it's climbing.
Okay, so, but on the other side of that coin, ppm, why wouldn't you want it at 0 every time that you know you've done your job and you fed them every drop of food in there? Or do you need,
Because if you get to the point where it's 0, that means it's not had food for a long time.
Okay, so with that number, 300, 500, 100, is there an optimum number for there? Or
So what we're learning right now with, you know, these new LEDs and the new high output lights and all the new technology with just wavelengths of color, light, and spectrum, we're finding that 400 with a, let's say, a Nextlight LED full-size mega panel running at 75%, 300 parts per million left in the soil, they're starving, according to everything we're seeing on these plants. But if they're maintaining 4 to 550, which in our Nectar manual would say flush at 550, well, now we're trying to build the soil to 550 just to build in the reserves for these high output LED lights. Where if you're in a double-ended ceramic metal halide, 250 to 400, the plants look stellar, they're green, they're praying, they're upright, they can take 1,500 parts per million of feed, still be 250 to 300 the next day. You know, they're happy, but 250 under a Nextlight, that's one starving plant apparently.
So the slurry on ppm seems like that number is just a way that I know where I stand in the moment, but it's not a set in stone number. You have to look at the plant, obviously, to see how happy it is.
And look at what your last input was.
Yeah.
Because if you're at 1,800 parts per million and it's 250 and the plants look great, they're loving what you're feeding them. That's a great recipe. But if you're at 2,500 parts per million and you're at 200 and the plants look yellow, they're starving because that 25 isn't giving them enough. They're still depleting you all the way down to 200 and they want more. So to get it down to 0 is virtually, I mean, everything that breaks down is releasing salt and amino acids and proteins. So all of those will read on the parts per million reader. So even if you, like cocoa fiber with fresh water and everything, it still comes out at 60 parts per million. And that's like washed all the way down to 0.
So if your plant's happy at 300 and my plant's happy at 500, those are our numbers, and there is no optimum number. It's what your plant looks happy at, and you need to shoot for that because you know that's where you need to be. You make your own range. Scott doesn't decide your range.
Oh, hell no. Don't come at me with that I did, because our ranges are this big for a reason. I mean, there is no magic number because, well, now let's all put our pH meter and our ppm meter together against everybody's pH and ppm meter, and guess what we're going to have? A whole bunch of different readings.
So it's your situation, so you don't know. It might be 2,500 or 5,500 because your meter's messed up. You don't know. It's whatever it is for you.
You go fast at 5,500 because it would look like you sprayed them with Roundup. They would be crispy yellow tomorrow.
Well, but yellow, unless your meter's wrong. Unless your meter's wrong.
No, even then. It added 2 zeros on the backside of this 55.
Okay. See, I think we got something out of that. That was a good answer to a good question. Now, there was a... Okay. You want me to read this? A couple questions if you have time, or do you want to just lay it out? This is the one at the top.
Read them all?
I'm going to read it. Oh, no, you said to skip those ones. You said to skip the Magic Gardens, the one and the one.
No, I said run. No, the whole thing was Mark. You said actor, and then I said there's 2 Mark questions.
Oh!
So, Magic, we do him. The
All right.
is very small.
So, we're on the... Okay.
Yeah, no, basically, when you see Camerons, those are just... They don't make a video of these things.
I gotcha. Okay.
But before we talk about the videos that you still need to make, they'll talk about the one question that came
Okay, I gotcha. All right. I gotcha.
Come on.
I'm off a little bit today. I don't have my intention.
It's terrible.
Magic Garden. My grow is very small. 2 plants. The local tap water is insanely... What's going on here?
It's Jack.
Roof.
Jack.
Well,
Jack.
Jack.
I may have killed him.
Sorry. My grow is very small, 2 plants. The local tap water is insanely hard, so I have to use deionized water to feed my plants. So I often run into this issue using Nectar for the Gods. If I buy a pack of calcium carbonated powder and use to mix for drinking water, can I just add that to increase alkalinity? So I
would like to see the label to make sure they're not putting other electrolytes and stuff in there, even though that's what the plants love.
Rondo! No, was it?
Rondo!
It's got electrolytes!
I would like to make sure that it's just calcium. If it's just calcium carbonate powder for drinking, it's absolutely fine. It's probably horribly expensive.
Well, it's some kind of...
to like just micronized limestone for agricultural purposes, it'll be the same product.
Well, a 5-gallon bucket versus a 5-gallon food grade bucket are entirely different things for the same bucket because of the standards they have to go to, and it's probably the same thing with this, I would assume.
Yep.
Okay. The
trick is how much do you add, and I would recommend either getting an Alkalinity pH strip thing, like a little rapid test alkalinity, like a swimming pool style one that you can just dip in and make sure you're not at 400, because you don't want to overshoot it by, aim for that 120, 140 mark. If you're at 180, you'd want to dilute that down with water again.
So water that's good for a human is not necessarily good for a plant? But probably so, right? I mean, if it works
it's about the same. If we all drink acidic water, we're all going to get cancer and die. If we all drink alkaline water, we all fight cancer and live. Same with plants. Plants don't like low pH. It breaks everything down into salt tissue.
That's not great. Not great.
No, and acids will do all that. It eats your teeth. It eats your bones. I mean, osteoporosis comes from acidic diets. A lot of people don't realize that the acids in our foods and waters are what make us crippled and old and decrepit.
Yeah, I drink a lot of that stuff. I'm freaking out right now.
Did you see the Mountain Dew? The guy tried to sue Mountain Dew because he found a mouse in it. And then they wrote
there was no mouse in there.
For the length, how much phosphoric acid in there, that would have been dissolved in 2 weeks.
There is no way.
Fully dissolved in 2 weeks.
That's terrifying. I want to move on before I freak out. K-Ghost 0311. Hey, Bob.
My cop friend told me if we found a mouse in the beer bottle that we could get free beer. Remember that?
Yes.
James Brew?
Love that movie.
My friend?
They're the one, they go in the water, they're getting the air out of the beer bottles.
I have to pee so bad. Then he puts out the fire on the town. All right.
Okay. All right. K-Ghost 0311. Hey, Bob, question for Scott. I'm right at day 30 for flour and need to do a tea. Everything is looking great, but hungry for phosphorus, and it's tea day. I hate making teas and want an instant tea. Would SLF, Photo Plus, and Aphrodite's be a good thing to mix up for that? Thanks again for all the help. Why not just use the Photo Plus?
Well, SLF is a microbe too.
Yeah. So, but would if you were making, if you were making a tea, would you just use Photo Plus, or would you add some stuff in there? And would you ever add any Nectar product, nutrient, to that for the tea day?
I don't, only because I'm not trying to make a food tea, but I see what he's trying to do.
Yeah,
he
get that phosphorus.
tea, but he wants the phosphorus available for the plant. So he wanted to add something in that will give it a little bit of that, or at least acclimate some.
Okay.
He'd be fine. The trick there, because he's not brewing it.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about Aphrodite's being a food source for his microbes.
Okay.
It's going to be a food source for the plant still. But my trick there, my advice there would be put the Aphrodite's in, pH it to where you want the tea to be.
Okay.
Then add your SLF and Photo Plus to it, stir and go. That would be fine. I also, if I know they're hungry, I know my parts per million are low, or I know I have some action I need to take, I will skip a tea day and do a feed day over a tea day any day. Because, if there's no food, there's no point in putting the microbes in there to find more food that's not there. So right now I'm working with a guy in New Hampshire that he can't tea because he can't feed him enough. And if he teas, everything goes haywire because it depletes the parts per million, jacks his pH up through the roof because the only thing left to eat is limestone. So they're consuming all that and making his pH climb.
So, in whatever circumstance, why would I do a tea day over a flush day? Why wouldn't I just flush every couple days? What is the tea giving me that the flush isn't as far as getting that
efficient digestion in the soil? So anything that wasn't absorbed on the feed day is now built up in the soil and being utilized by microbes, and by adding those tea days in there, and really diverse tea days. What we're excited about with these new 2 micro products we're testing with a lot of these farms is they're colonizing in there. So we're not needing to reapply the same microbe, feed this microbe, feed flush, feed that microbe again, because that microbe is now colonizing well enough to where we can alternate our different types of teas, whether it's Photo Plus, primordial solutions, compost tea, the new Apollo, the new, whatever it may be. Okay. You can kind of alternate your microbes to keep these these very diverse colonies of different sources of microbes consuming the things in the soil.
If I'm not brewing my tea, but I'm just using Photo Plus, why wouldn't I flush every 3-4 days and just put my Photo Plus in every time I feed to get my microbes? Am I getting something from the tea other than diversity over a flush? Yeah,
you're getting more food released from the soil.
From the soil.
Releasing the soil, it's pushing it out, where a tea is feeding off the soil and releasing that to the plant. So you're getting the food on your tea days.
For an ultimately healthier soil and a more natural grow? Is that what you're saying with the tea? Does that make sense?
Pretty much. If you just feed, and you have microbes on top, there's still an excess of food.
And I just flush that out.
Microbes need a break from feeds so they can actually process all the stuff to make into food.
So this is part of the natural process of doing it, is why we do a day for the tea. But if I've got a situation here, I'm certainly not going to do that over feeding my plants. I'm not going to,
Feeding plants, #1 priority. #2 priority is giving the microbes in there to make sure that the food you've already given them is accessed and efficient. And #3 is making sure the parts per million and pH are sound, and by the working flushes will kind of help keep those in check.
If I'm starving to death, I'm not going to go to the doctor to check on my yearly checkup. I'm going to eat some food.
It's probably a good start.
Okay, I got you. So, but the tea is part of a natural growing, or a more natural growing process, but it is certainly not something that you would do if you're got starving plants or you got deficiencies.
Oh, for sure. And I think originally how this all stemmed was so many people wanted to go, I want to feed once a week and then water. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to eat breakfast on Monday, but not again until Saturday dinner. Well, that doesn't work that way. They really want the food.
Yeah.
So what we were trying to encourage people is if you do more feeds, even if they're a little bit lighter, they're getting access to nutrition more frequently.
More consistently.
Well, the water day, because we don't believe in just water days.
Yeah.
And, to us, it's a waste. It's a missed opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
So the first water day is a tea day. So it's predominantly water. It has life organisms in there. There's no NPK value. There's no high parts per million to it. But all of those little guys you're putting into this tea enter in the soil and they break down the last 2 feedings and make that available to the plant as a food. So now we save money on not mixing up 17 parts because I'm a glutton and like to use that many. And now I'm just adding a couple teaspoons of life to a gallon of water and they colonize and eat everything. I've saved money on my feed and I'm still feeding. And then the same with the flush day is, need it or not, you do the bone meal flush in a sense, and again, this comes down to the microbes. If your parts per million in your soil are 225 parts per million, skip your flush day. Keep with a feed day because what are you flushing out? You're flushing out the last 225 in reserves so that there's none? No, keep that going as a regular feed. And our flushes are so that it's not a blank slate. It's not just water reducing the sodium in the soil. It's a calcium shot. It's a little bit of phosphorus, and it's accessing the excess salts that are built up in the soil and help them become too large to be absorbed immediately by the plant.
So feed tea, feed flush, not unlike the feeding chart, is a good starting point to figure out what works for you.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a guideline. It's not a set
It's a heck
stone.
of a guideline because if you do a feed, water, feed, water, feed, you're going to find that they look really good after feeding, but boy, they really lose their luster on the 2 waterings.
Shocking.
When I eat breakfast only, by afternoon I'm hangry as a mo, Frankie, and I'm not a nice guy.
I've experienced that.
Yes, you have. With love.
No, absolutely with love.
All right.
All right. Let's see here. Mark Maccabee. I've been seeing people saying that they reuse their dehumidifier water. What is your opinion on this? Could this affect pH and alkalinity? Is there enough water that comes out of that thing to I mean...
If you're in Michigan, you could almost fill a reservoir with it, Ken. It pulls humidity out of the air, so... Yeah, so
would you use... I mean, we're not talking about using this exclusively for your water. We're talking about fortifying your water with this. Does it fortify your water? Does it make your water better?
It's distilled water. I mean... So
no, it's
broken water because it's the evaporative water in the air that the machine's pulling out. If you have I've used it. I've not run into problems before. Like in a pinch, I didn't want to use chlorinated water fresh, so I just pulled it out of my DU and and then I had a breeder come to me once and was like, "You never ever do that." And the reason was legit, but it's not necessarily everybody's issue. But if you have mold, mildew, a pathogen that's airborne, and you're sucking that in and you're putting it into the distilled water in the reservoir and it gets past filtration and then you water it back in, you're just recycling your nightmare.
Well, also you've got this water just sitting in there. You've got stagnant water to some extent, even though it is distilled water.
I'm shocked, man. I can feel like in my little grow in Eugene, Oregon, I mean, I can pull 1.5 gallons a day of distilled water or evaporated water from the dehumidifier. So, I mean, it doesn't sit in there very long.
Okay, but this is still, it's not a still. This is not like it's purifying that water as its job. It's just, this is a byproduct of it, so that the machinery...
Because once the water leaves the plant and is evaporated, it's pure.
Well, but then
it has to come through a dirty-ass machine that's been in your grow room for 9 months.
That was not made
never had the filter cleaned
for that.
So
that's what I'm saying, is that if you had a still where you were making... this water, yes, but you're also taking that water and then dumping it into here and leaving it in that little tank there that's suspect at best.
It'd be, I would question it myself. I'd be concerned.
So you would say...
I don't...
probably not.
I tried it. I didn't get bit, but I think more people have been bit than not. And I think if you look around and you see any hyphen growing on anything, those spores are airborne, and those spores will be gathered up in your solution.
I was not the same thing, but I was growing all those peppers back at the store, and I had someone bring in one of their little fudgy little plants, and next thing you know...
Mildew.
Yeah, and you're like...
white feathers.
You think you're bulletproof. You know, you're like, oh, it's going to be fine, and then it hits you, and you're like, no, I'm not bulletproof.
Well, I don't take clones, because I've learned nobody's bulletproof and everything. I don't date other people's girlfriends for that reason.
You just
my friend.
don't know.
I'm interested in you.
No. That's fine for you, but I'll stick with what I've got.
Yeah, you may want to have your doctor look at you again one more time.
You should seek medical attention.
Yeah. Have you heard of peroxide? You don't want a bunch of that.
You need a double bag, son. A couple of questions if you have time. One, is the Nectar line compatible with fish emulsion? I have been using AgroThrive. AgroThrive? That's a great name. Fulfilling and fruiting and flowering fertilizer 335 fish emulsion, and I would like to include it in my recipes. AgroThrive 335 has a pH of 4 to 4.3, which will be helpful in adjusting pH.
So the guy.
As a side note, at the first opening, I found your Pegasus potion. Rather, have I already gone into a new question?
No, I think he breaks it down with a number 2.
All right. So,
I think he's just saying how horrible the smell of this fish is compared to the AgroThrive. When he opens it up, it's pretty stinky.
Okay, so a fish emulsion?
Yeah, when
what
I
does
open
that
the
mean?
AgroThrive, it only takes seconds before the flies show up. Where the Pegasus, I'm sure when the mint goes away, they might do the same thing.
Same thing. So, but fish emulsion, what is that? What is a fish emulsion?
So there's all sorts of different processes to make liquid fish solutions, and a lot of it will be cold process. A lot of it is a digest, a fermentation. Emulsion is just the extraction of all of those elements and putting them into a filtered fertilizer scented product.
Is this fish juice or fish poop?
This is fish parts. So this is like they've taken the meat off, they've done the stuff for pet food, and everything else becomes fish emulsion. Or it's the worthless fish that they don't use for market and won't be used for pet food, and they'll just grind those up and make fish emulsion out of.
So I know this guy, and he has a natural spring, and he's used it to make a fish ladder thing where he basically grows trout for restaurants, and they poop in there. And they poop in there. Is that good stuff? Is that what fish poop is when you the fish shit thing, or is that what they're doing there?
Yeah, fish shit's basically fermented fish waste off their filtration systems.
It's the same kind of
situation.
situation.
Fish that they just collect their bacteria and waste off. It's a lot of nitrogen, a lot of trace minerals, a lot of different elements.
So it's not unlike fertilizer from back in the day from a cow and stuff. It's the same thing. Yeah,
it's full NPK product fish.
And that's not what this is. This is not a microbial
either. This is more
either.
of a broad spectrum fish emulsion. So it's fish meat, fish bone, fish cartilage, fish oil. I mean, it's giving you all the parts of the fish as a food source. And it's an old school, like that for veg and guanos for blooming would be the 1970s model of
I gotcha.
Canada. So there's nothing wrong with it. It grows great corn. It grows peppers. I mean, it's a good nitrogen source. It's fast. But there's no longevity to it, so it's something you keep applying.
It's similar to the guano in that it's
very soluble,
very quick to reacting, and then gone.
Yeah.
Okay. Good answer, I think. I don't know. Cameron Mozzie, can we get a video on the Kraken?
I know you missed that. Now Number 2, are there any issues when including baking soda to a recipe? In the Nectar Bible, baking soda is mentioned as a way to raise pH. Based on my first 2 batches of mix of soil drench, when adding AgroThrive, I had to bring up the pH using baking soda. Even at 5 ounces of AgroThrive and 5 gallon mix, I had to add a tablespoon. plus 1 teaspoon of baking soda to bring the pH up to 6.5. Well, you can, again, these are one of those things where it's soda bicarbonate. That's what baking soda is.
Okay.
Soda, sodium bicarbonate, sodium
salt.
So it's just a pure salt. So yeah, it brings it up. All bicarbonates aren't the same. The downfall is you're adding a lot of salt to fish emulsion, which is already pretty salty by its nature.
What, with being in the ocean?
It has no long game. Again, it'll start depositing in your soil and creating a high parts per million in your soil because of the sodium bicarbonate. Your best, really, that's where Olympus Up is so unique because it's a calcium carbonate that raises your pH and it converts it into a bicarbonate food source. So way more helpful to the plant, way more helpful to the soil. Strip salt versus build salt. The sodium carbonate is going to become an issue over the next few feedings because it'll just start building up in the soil.
So if I've decided to grow with Nectar, I probably would not use anything other than microbial additives to that, and any kind of other food is counterproductive to some extent because it's not part of the program.
No.
Go ahead.
Like a fish product because there's a million fish products. So what's the point? We didn't want to chase everybody just to recreate everybody's wheel. You can use a lot of different things. The downfall is baking soda is one of those, I ran out of something. Do I use vinegar or baking soda? That's what he's asking.
I gotcha.
I wouldn't use baking soda as my pH up on the regular, like more than once or twice in a run because that sodium is going to build up and be a problem.
So, but Tritons, Pegasus, things like this, you design these to work within the confines of this system, whereas some other things may be salty-er and be counterproductive to what you're doing within Grow a Nectar Grow. Am I, no, yes, no?
I mean, not necessarily. If it's natural, our shit's going to work fine with
Okay.
It comes down to flavor. Like, a lot of guys don't want the guano teas because they don't see the benefit as much. And the older OG growers love the guano teas because they get that guanine terpene in the plant that they pull out, and that's what they remember from that.
I gotcha.
So, again, it's, everything besides the first 6 or 7 products, everything outside of that is because another company had a product that one of our growers wanted, so we replicated that product, not necessarily because when we add this makes our shit so much better. Well, if it did, then I'd be using all 17 products, and I don't use all 17 products.
Well, but anything you made to work with Olympus and Hades, though. Am I wrong there?
Well, I mean, they all work well with it.
But that was kind of you tried to make them work within what you were doing with the Herc and this and that, and that you would use these up and down pHs.
So that if we adjusted with Olympus Up, it wasn't going to change the properties of the product. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't think for the amount, I mean, he's at 1 ounce of Agro Thrive per gallon. If you pH that with Olympus Up, you're going to tie up this much salt, and you're just going to make the pH in range to where the whole plant's going to eat it. Anything that the plant didn't eat because the salt and the calcium reacted, that just becomes a microbial food anyway, so that's what's so important about a tea day.
And so these are about when you would use these things. If you were using some off the label, kind of off the product thing, you'd be doing this in a flavor situation, not as part of a this is going to make it grow bigger, like a mag amp or something of that nature.
Grow. So if you're one of those where it's like, man, I need it to grow, and Pegasus just isn't doing it, then the fish always makes things grow. I mean, that's the number one fertilizer of the Indian was a fish.
Yeah. Okay. I think I took you off track. That was a bad answer, but it was my fault.
Plants is the third question.
Pineapple? What?
I am growing pineapple plants in containers, and iron deficiency is a problem. Do any of the Nectar products contain iron? That would help with iron deficiencies. If not, is the Nectar line, is it compatible with iron products?
I've discovered something that may be a problem for me. Is that you're better at reading the questions and answering the questions.
I know you're fired, so I don't know. Well, you guys just witnessed our last show with Bob here. So Bob's gone from tuning to Bob's the Car Guy show. American Car Guy on YouTube. He's got 8 videos and they're fantastic. They're actually pretty well produced, I gotta say. I enjoy them. They're stupid and they're fun because they're way more fun than watching you and your buddy talk.
Oh yeah, no, that's not gonna work.
Those are painful. But like you do a really good job at storytelling, getting gas in the Subaru before it's freaking. It makes me just want to like drive by you and then splash you with water in a puddle.
Okay. Well,
I love your. So tune in. You got to go to YouTube. American Car.
America's Car Guy.
America's Car Guy.
America's Car Guy. With an S. Apostrophe S. Apostrophe S.
America's Car Guy. You got to go see it on YouTube. It's Bob.
Especially now. Because I'm going to need the money now that I'm not doing this. That's because I got fired because I can't read.
Yeah, sorry, honey. I have to make 3 episodes a day on America's Car Guy. So I need you to start giving me cars.
So pineapples?
So iron deficiency. You can get iron out of the Medusa and the Gaia. There's a little bit in there. It's iron chelate from Biomin. It's organic. It's usually enough. I mean, we've grown pineapples in our grow rooms here at the store, and everyone's turned out freaking amazing. They love the Herculean harvest, I can tell you that much. And once you see the actual fruit body forming and starting to actually develop, having little Aphrodites in there too, really adds some bricks to that pineapple. It is ridiculously good. But if you don't feel like that's enough, Maxi Crop with iron is a really nice, gentle liquid seaweed with an iron load to it. That's really easy and helpful to use, and our line does work fine with iron. You just have to up your phosphorus if you're using a lot of iron. Just that's the key.
Why is that?
They're antagonizing iron, so they don't like each other.
Okay. All right. Oh, all right. I was talking to some cat that had been back when you had the store on. Was it Olympic? No, it wasn't Olympic. We're on Q
Street.
And he's like, you go in there and it's just like a wall of green. You guys were just growing everything there. I think that kind of got lost when you guys got to the new place and started,
Brian and I got busy.
Yeah.
So, when we hired employees,
they're not going to do that.
Yeah. Well, there's passion. I mean, again, it comes down to like when people are growing. You get 10 seeds, exact seeds, and exact recipes to 10 growers, and you cannot replicate that grow. And
it's
same
not
thing with our room.
Yeah, it didn't even feel like it's so much skill as it is intention. I mean, if you want this thing to grow, you'll find a way.
Yeah. If you have the good intentions, it's going to make it. I remember breaking out the first pineapple we ever grew in the shop. And, we're at Eugene, so we've got a lot of athletes and stuff that go to U of O. And predominantly Hawaiian defensive line.
Oh, and so they haven't had a real pineapple since they've been over here.
And even when they get here and they see what we had, they like grab it. The first thing they do is they lick the skin. And they're like, oh.
This is the guy.
Like, you can taste it through the skin. You got something sweet coming. And this one Samoan man, huge. It's just like, my family owns a plantation and I've never had a pineapple this good.
Wow.
So they don't feed pineapples either. I mean, it's a very simple fertilizing program. So when you're feeding them the Greek recipe, and they're this big and they're oozing sugar.
Well, anything you buy in a store was sold by the pound, and it's gonna be, they're gonna feed it as little as they can to get it where they can sell it. So you make it yourself.
Like chicken, like eggs. I mean, when you go get, I won't eat an egg outside of my house anymore because my eggs are orange, and when they're lighter than this, it's like, that's not it. This is like, I gave them exactly 0.3 cents food today, and they literally monitor the exact amount of food that they need to live.
And say, as little as
chickens are gluttonous pigs. I mean, they eat whatever the hell they want. I mean, I juice every morning, so they get like the equivalents to 12 cucumbers, a pound of berries, 4 celery sticks.
Boy, I bet they're regular with all that fiber.
But the eggs. So I'm with you. If it's you're growing it yourself, you have a different intention for the food, and it always tends to come out way better.
Okay, I've got 3 more questions. If I'm down to here, and I'm gonna focus on reading them.
I won't help you read anymore.
Don't, you're embarrassing me when you do that.
I'm not even a good reader. I don't even have good eyesight.
It's the intention. I just get bored halfway through.
I don't know that word. I'll make one up.
I like talking to you, but I don't like reading. So and it's funny because I'm a big reader. Cameron Mosey, can we get a video on Kraken? Now, I'm going to stop here. I would like to do a video on... No, fuck you. I would like to get a video on every product, but I don't want you to tell me about how amazing it is and all this and all that. I would like to get a when, where, how kind of video, just like a how-to with each product of how you might use them. And Kraken is a good example of that because it's a little, you know, it's one of the newer things and it's kind of nebulous. What are we doing with this thing? Why are we doing it? But not so much why. I can figure out my own why. I'd like to figure out how. Does that make any sense?
No, yeah, it's like when I try to explain chaos where the different modes, if you spray it, it does this, if you water, it does this, and this stage, it does that. I mean, that's basically the same concept.
Yeah, well, but even if you didn't say what it does, of just, you know, try it this way, try it this way, try it this way, of what those things are that you can do, I think that would be super helpful.
Well, let's make 3 videos, one with that in it, and the one with the Chimera in it. Yeah,
so, the Chimera... What's going on? I mean, so if you can't get Chimera, you can use Garden Lime. Am I correct?
Yeah, Down to Earth Garden Lime will get you there. It won't do the same thing, but it'll get you to where you need to be. And Chimera is we're now printing up these temporary labels, and OCG will have them on their OCGFAM site by Monday.
Okay.
So you can start taking a look at it. They'll look like this. Let's see. Have you even seen the Chimera label?
I think so. I don't remember. The other one was yeah. No, I've seen it when you know because of Cole. What he's doing. He's killing it.
God. Yeah, that Circes is something else.
That's awesome. Yeah. See now. Not only is that awesome. It looks like a Nectar label. It looks like the rest of them. It's not like a couple of them I won't mention that don't look right. They look good, but they don't fit.
They have their place.
Yeah, absolutely. But you got someone who gets it. That's awesome.
Dude, this kid, I don't know.
Talk about intention.
Have their egos explode. But
yeah, no, you got to pay him more.
Explode because he's got some freaking talent.
Yeah.
The guy knows. He's learned everything. Like, here's a computer. Okay, I'm going to learn it. I learned Illustrator in 8 hours. Dude, I've been playing with Illustrator for 22 years.
Me too. Every time I go to use it again, I'm like, damn it. How do you...
It's amazing.
Yeah.
He is... Well, so Chimera was all done. Everything was perfect. And then California said you can't say cure. So they got rid of we had to get rid of Chimera's cure because what we're trying to do is say, hey, we'll fix your pH.
I got you. That is a little strong. Okay. That's cool.
So you should say cure down here.
Yeah, there should never be a second word on anyone. We should never have a second word on anything. It should just be the name of it, and then people just have to guess what it does.
That's pretty much what they are anyway. I mean, like Morpheus. Well, what's that? It's Mega, and it's Morpheus. Nobody knows what any of this stuff does. That's what kills us. If we just had simple stuff like we wanted to, whoa, enhancement 1, enhancement 2, enhancement 3.
That would be, you should just ABC, just start.
We did. We started with ABC, and then we changed it to bone meal, yucca meal, grow, bloom.
It's just confusing.
Yucca.
Use this, and this. Use some of this with it.
Dude,
once you've done that, try this.
The clip art, people would get mad at us like, oh man, we need some C. What's C now? What is C? C is Zeus juice. It's plant growth enhancer. As a matter of fact, the employees still pick orders with the old names.
Yeah, I know. I've seen it. Yeah, it's funny. They have all
the codes and everything. PGE.
I'll go in there and I have to open the box to see what it.
They're like, what's BAS?
Well, and all the banners. The banners are all labeled the old way. So I'm like,
you're like, what is IBM?
Damn it. That was great.
So yeah, we'll do some videos on that.
Okay. And then LEDs. I feel like
definitely need an LED one. I think we're getting really close to an LED one and seeing. I just need to get into a space that's all LEDs so we can actually do filming there. But I've got a ton of feedback, and right now the feeding schedule is looking like a 1.5 multiplier on all stages.
Do you think it's analog in that way, that it's just more because, and it's, so the LED basically, do you think what it is that it penetrates deeper? It penetrates more into the...
It's the right wavelength, it's the right energy length. I mean, it's
the thing.
They're mimicking sunlight energy waves without the intensity.
So, to that end, do you think it's just, I mean, obviously you need a chart, but at this point, is it just use more?
That's what we're seeing, is everybody that's struggling is their low ppms in the soil after feedings. And it's, so like one guy's flat out saying, he runs number 4, but he piles in the one shot and still feeds Roman.
Do you think they'll make an LED with a dimmer to some extent? Where you can dial in?
Everybody I know is running these at 75%.
So you have to dial in that you can't use all of it because it'll come for you.
I mean, maybe if you're growing pineapples, of course you can use them all. Well, it'll be interesting because actually the Botanic Assassin, Kevin, that we're working with in the Midwest, he just got a deal, or he's working with an urban farm project in Chicago where they're doing food crops for inner city in greenhouses with LEDs from Nextlight, amino acids from Nectar, SLF, and Microblife. And that's pretty much all they're using. And the amount of food they're being able to produce at this rate is pretty staggering. I mean, these LEDs are being able to, food crops really enjoy that high LED.
When we were talking about back in the day, I wanted to do a garden, an indoor garden that was your full garden. Do you think that light was the limiting factor in that? That's why you can't grow. I mean, you can't grow all the food you need in a bedroom, but is light the limiting factor?
Space and light.
Well,
because I think now with the lighting, I mean, I could survive on a bedroom garden, a 10 by 10 garden. I mean, you wouldn't be able to grow corn or watermelons efficiently, but you could grow all the nutrition you needed in a bedroom.
Well, because when I'm in my garage and I have all the lights off, but the doggy door is pulled open, I can still see in here. I mean, just that little thing from the sun. I mean, the sun is so much powerful than any lights we have, but because it penetrates, it gets farther, and you think LEDs are to some extent far closer to that, and maybe a huge revolution in what we're doing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I would poo-poo them 2 years ago, and I crapped on them a ton 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because they were just disco lights. But now, I mean, every one of my, people I hold in high regard as a grower who's running these right now, their reports back are all, like, I don't believe it. They're fishing stories. It sounds like everybody's catching 20-foot salmon all of a sudden. But then you go and you see it, and then you go and you partake in it, and you witness it, and you're like, when I'm sitting here troubleshooting with a farm because they can't, no matter what, they're like, the only thing we've changed is the lights, but now we have to feed them twice as much to keep them happy, but my yield is up, 8,500 grams per room at 6 lights, and you're just going, holy crap, you're pulling 3.5 pound lights, or, per light, 3.5 pounds is nothing to balk at.
How did this differ? I mean, when they run into this problem versus pig running into the alkalinity issue and figuring that out, how does this differ from that, where they were it still tasted good, but the yield went away with the alkalinity thing, right?
Different look of plant. One looks like it's tortured and just hits a wall and stops, and that's the pH ones. Where all of a sudden with the ppm issue where they're just starving, you just can see that it's not that they're not being able to access food, they just can't get enough food.
There's just not enough there.
No. Yeah. You can see it, like you foliar feed, they green up for 3 hours and then they go pale in 4, and you're going, oh, they're using that stuff so fast, it's just unreal.
Wow.
It's unreal. It makes it turns these into different monsters. And you have to be ready for it. I mean, you really have to be, it's going to take people a whole nother dialing in, but boy, like it took Pig 2 rounds to get that room in. And now it's just, let's put it this way, they're bringing back genetics that they threw away because they didn't think they were performers. And now they put them back in here and they're performing like no other time before.
Do you feel like you need to up your foliar game just to keep up when you realize you need to go harder in your
No, I think one shot's going to become your best damn friend. Because if you have that reserve in the soil, then you're not sweating so hard how much you're putting in every time.
And are you going to be...
That's been the hardest problem, is trying to control all your inputs all the time. And
you just can't get there.
Feed them enough because there's nothing left behind when they're done eating.
And are you one-shotting multiple times?
Most of these guys, I'm finding if you go heavy once, like heavy meaning like an ounce per gallon, maybe an ounce and a half per gallon of soil going into flowering, so you got 8 to 10 weeks for it to go away. That's usually enough to nail them all the way through with a regular feeding schedule.
And then how does this affect your alkalinity issue if you were having that issue? Does this make it better or worse or the same?
It accentuates everything. So, I mean, if you are always diving down, be prepared because now you have that much more energy for this plant to dive down harder. So, yeah, you'd want to just make sure that if you've had alkalinity issues, you want to definitely dial that in. However, that's why we even got to this at Pig's Farm is that all the pH alkalinity issue was forever. Yeah. We fixed that. Then we put X-Lights in, and then it was like a whole nother nightmare we had to chase. Much easier to chase the need more food than how do I get my pH up?
Very interesting. Very interesting. All right. I think that's a show, eh?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Sweet.
There you go. Turn off the thing. Here we go. The OCGFAM show. It's pretty good. It happens every day. It's the OCGFAM show. See you tomorrow.